Assalamu alaikum. Free Palestine, free Congo, peace upon you. Viva la révolution, viva la paix. Isobana Congo, Afrika, mokile mobimba toye. Cultivons la paix, bannissons la haine. Cultivons l'égalité, bannissons l'oppression. Cultivons l'harmonie, bannissons la violence. La Palestine, le Congo, la Palestine, le Congo, la Palestine, le Congo, la Palestine, le Congo.
Hello, fam. Welcome back to Congo Unfiltered. I was actually jamming on that music from Passy Bass from Congo in Kinshasa. So, welcome. If it's your first time here, let me welcome you. And today I don't even have one main topic. Still scrambling to bring guests so that we can dive deep into the conversation that we had last week with Reverend Alex Awad, and we talked about Palestine. We talked about the President Herzog, the Israeli president's visit in the Congo. So, and still trying to kind of bring the conversation so that people can be able to bridge the gap between Palestine, Congo, Israel. What the heck is the president of Israel doing in the Congo in the first place? The fact that the Congo is soon to be a non-permanent member at the UN Security Council. And when it comes to international law, when it comes to implementing international laws, the Security Council plays a really major role. But it's on standby. Part 2 will be coming. But for this specific episode, we are going to talk about news cycle around the Congo because things have been really wild. So we're going to flow and just not really freestyle because I still have some stuff for you and then a really nice guest that hopefully y'all can learn from him. We're first going to talk about COP30. For those who don't know, that's the UN conference on climate change. We will talk about the Belgium legal investigation targeting members of the President Tshisekedi's family. Who is President Tshisekedi? He is the current president of the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And why is the Belgium justice investigating his family? We're going to discuss in this on this show. And then we're also going to talk about Arsenal, which is my club, right? Don't judge me. I'm an Arsenal fan, diehard. Is finally ending the Visit Rwanda deal or partnership. Next week, I will bring you somebody who will be able to speak in details. And folks, Garners for Peace, and shout out to you guys for the incredible work that you guys have been doing. Mama Mimi, salute to you from Congolese Action Youth Platform, also at the forefront of that. We will discuss that. We will unpack the work that Gunners for Peace have been doing and what that news mean for the movements for the future. What's next? It's not just Arsenal; it's also Bayern Munich, which has a contract to 2028. Atletico Madrid, who also signed a Visit Rwanda partnership, and there is Los Angeles Rams and Clippers, and all these institutions or international organizations or events that are somehow helping Paul Kagame's get away with what he has been doing inside Rwanda, because we have to say free Rwanda as well. Rwandan people have not been able to speak at all, and also outside. We're gonna speak in this show about Israel end of year PR push, public relation push. In terms of what I've been saying, like they have been really trying hard, visiting the Congo, visited Zambia, right? So we'll dive a little bit on that, and then also Friends of the Congo had the honor to be interviewing Todo Chido podcast. And if you don't know what that podcast is, they are available on YouTube after this show. You can check them out. Todo Chido on Instagram. They're also available on Apple, Spotify. But if you want to watch cool videos that they have, it's on Instagram and on YouTube. And we really, I was really moved the way they even grabbed the conversation regarding that. So I'm going to be dissecting our conversation, which naturally moved into immigration, ICE raids, F1 visa, H1B visa, because we all know that the Congo connects to the immigrants struggle, because Congolese people in America are also immigrants. So honestly, it's going to be one of those episodes where everything looks separate, but it's all connected at the end. So I guess without further ado, and I'm going to start with my guest. His name is uh, Rafael Cambire, and the reason why uh, personally, I really want us to touch on the issue that I really want us to touch on the issue of COP30, which is like I mentioned, my camera is cricket. It's the United Nations climate change conference, right? Like, because there is a lot of things happening, and why it's very important for Congolese people to be at the table. And why is that? Why Congolese people have to be at the table? Because of, really, we talk about the Congolese forest. We talk about what the Congo forest, the Congo Basin has, and which is really the honestly the second lung of the planet. And Brazil really gets a lot of attention for the Amazon, but scientifically the Congo Basin is just as it is important, honestly. So it really absorb the carbon dioxide emission. It really stabilize Africa climate system, and also it's plays a role as a carbon shield. So we're talking about deforestation and how multinationals essentially don't care about the lives, because it's not okay for them to cut trees in America, in Europe, but then they suddenly find a way to do just that in Africa, in the Congo. And why the climate change conference? Why COP30? Because it's also really good for the green energy transition. Because I've spoken length with regarding the green energy transition, and how the children are affected, the people are affected, because this energy transition runs really through Congolese blood in that aspect. People pushing for harder, right? Harder than ever, harder than what happened during the Berlin conference for electric cars, lithium batteries, and renewable energy. So they push for that, but nobody wants to talk about the place that Congos have, right? That Congo has, and the needs for Congolese people to be at that seat. And France of the Congo has been really pushing hard. So the Basanja coalition, the group or the movement that we support, in the Congolese group, the Congolese movement that we support, are taking part of those conversation. So what this means for us is that we are going to essentially expose, right? That the lie, and we've been doing that, the lie of clean energy, and then the exploitation behind the cobalt, coltan, and all these minerals, and also, frankly, the violence fuels that is fueling the supply chain, and nobody looks to care about the supply chain anymore when you have the United States that could like purchase directly minerals from Rwanda without even caring about this own law, Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, or even that the amount or the number of reports published out there that are documenting how Rwanda, the Rwanda-backed militia, how Rwanda, the Rwandan government has been fueling conflict, has been extracting, exploiting, and also doing illicit deals, getting minerals from the Congo and selling them overseas. So and then lastly, it's because the Congo War is also an environmental war, and then there is gorillas that are become mountain gorillas that are becoming extinct because of the war. Um, Forests are being destroyed, rivers are being polluted, mining zone and stuff. So it's very important for us to also recognize that when we talk about the Congo, when we talk about the war in the Congo, it is affecting the people, but it's also affecting the environment. So just in case you don't care about the people of the Congo because they're black, just in case you don't care about the people of the Congo because they're in Africa, well, you gotta care about the air that you breathe, right? Like you gotta care about the pollution. So we will talk about these things, and I'm still waiting on my guests to join us. Um, but and then also because of I guess uh the debates that has the debate that has been happening around that particular issue. Let me see. Uh, yeah, got a message from my guest. Um, so essentially, at every COP 30, uh, the conversation, the debates is about Europe essentially talking for Africa, right? That has been kind of like the narrative that we really want to break, that we really want to end, because the West cannot continuously talk for Africans. The West cannot continue to talk for the third world bloc. And I'm saying third world not in a way to talk about like the way he has been, used as poor countries, underdeveloped countries. Now, the third bloc, in the sense that we do not align with either the Western bloc, which is quote unquote capitalist, if I have to refer to what was happening back then in the 80s, 60s, 70s, and the Eastern Bloc, which was socialist or communist, and many countries at the Bandung Conference, for example, in 1959, they came together. They said, we do not want to align behind the United States. We do not want to align behind the Soviet Union. We want to be our own third bloc. And ever since we've seen this repetitive in terms of talking for the third block. So and yeah, and we really want to end that cycle, break that cycle, because we have nonprofits, we have Congolese nonprofits that we have Congolese people that can speak for themselves, and we have Congolese activists that can speak for themselves, and it's just about providing them with the platform. And one of them is Rafael, who just joined us, and I'm gonna put him on here. Rafael, hey, can you hear me? I think he has some problem with connection, but as soon as he will be able to have a stable connection, we'll bring him in on stage. So, and then also at every COP, every UN climate change conference, we have a really interesting narrative that we also have to deconstruct, right? Like we always have in those COP, Rwanda positioning itself as a green innovator, right? Um, and that's the thing that we really needs to really emphasize, and also mining companies pretending like they're being sustainable, like other companies buying resources for places that they know are susceptible, are buying from places that they know are essentially allowing violence to happen to civilians, right? That the minerals that they just bought up were mined forcibly by children, were mined or monitored by rebel groups that are involved in grave human rights violation, yet they sell those to us. They make cell phones, they make electric vehicles, cars, and they say that they have renewable resources, that renewable coltan. That's what iPhone has been saying, that there is no way that the coltan that they have to make cell phones, to make iPhones, could come from conflict area because they are recycled. Tesla is also arguing the same thing, and that's essentially some sort of like a I'm not a legal expert, and that's why we're also trying to bring more folks. We will have. I'm hoping to have the IRA International Right Advocate to talk about the lawsuits. That was a conversation that we had. It was live at Stanford's Law School. We discussed about the action that the IRA is doing or taking against Tesla and other companies to avoid that, because we have this conversation about Congolese resources, about the forest, about the river. Meanwhile, the Congolese people, and I'm talking about scientists, I'm talking about students, I'm talking about activists, I'm talking about the diaspora, I'm talking about the youth, are never present, are never centered. And this is why places like this podcast, Friends of the Congo, you all, us, can really push back against those type of like settings where people speak about us or on our behalf without us being present, right? And then COP 30 also really is shaping, right? Is really shaping that policies that affect the Congolese people directly. Not just Congolese people, I would say the Congo as a whole. Because those decisions are made in terms of regulating mining. There has been the whole whole mining law crafted to make sure that the Congo was respecting that, and those laws are being imposed to a sovereign nation, Excuse me, let me drink water. To a sovereign nation like the Congo, right? They are being imposed. Okay, these are the law that you need to implement for the whole world to be extracting your minerals. There was also forest preservations. And that's the part where I'm really blaming the Congolese government, because I remember, I think it was in Senegal in 2019, I believe, where the president of the Congo, it was a really funny video, y'all. Like the president of the Congo, Tshisekedi, was trying to explain uh, the emission of carbon dioxide and how the Congo was playing a vital role for that, just to go ahead and start talking about them cutting trees. That was very funny, because even the way they introduced him and the way he started the conversation to just end up talking about cutting trees, I was like, okay, because something that you need to know is that Congo has its challenges. Uh, you all probably certainly have, you watching with a stable connection, so you certainly have stable connection, 24/7 electricity, right? Rarely goes out or goes off. The power never went out. The power never goes out. And in the Congo is different. In Congo, there are places where you can spend 6 months without electricity. I know it's crazy. 6 months without electricity. You can spend days, weeks without electricity at all. So people have been a little bit creative in terms of still making sure that they can cook, still making sure that they can keep themselves warm. And there are this thing called makala, which is essentially like, how can I even describe makala in English? It's like kind of like wood. And he was trying to explain how they are making these essentially by cutting trees. And but again, the way they do it is not at the same scale as big companies are doing it, because like Samuel Agassi was explaining to us uh, last year, actually, when I had a conversation with him about how the Congolese people, how the indigenous they tend to respect the environments more than foreigners that come to exploit resources. When they come, like somebody from a multinational company cutting trees is completely different from an indigenous cutting trees. Like the goals are completely different. And also what happened after that is completely charcoal. Thank you, Brother Morris, watching us live. Charcoal, yes. And like the way that they take care of it is completely different from multinational companies. They really want to make sure that they are replanting, because trees also really have a really ancestral and traditional place that are valued. Raphael, give me a thumbs up if your connection is good and you can hear me so I can put you on stage. Raphael, let me just bring up. Raphael, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here, sir. How are you? Yes.
I am good. I'm glad that you could join us. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing okay, man. Sorry, because it's raining here. I think there's a connectivity problem, but I'm okay.
No worries. We are just glad to have you. So, really
Mhm.
quick for the audience, like who you are, and what organization you're working with, before we actually dive into kind of the work that you have been doing, because there was the COP 30 that happened and you took part of a march. So if you can like introduce yourself and tell us more about that.
Thank you so much, comrade. My name is Raphael Bahebwa. I'm leading an organization called and we are in South Africa, and we're trying to lobby outside South Africa, but definitely we are in Congo as well. So thank you so much. I think this is my introduction.
I don't think we heard the organization that you're part of. What organization is it? I think you were cutting out.
I can hear you.
The organization. What organization are you with? Because you cut out when you were speaking. Oh, I couldn't hear you.
I'm a leader of Congolese Solidarity Campaign movement. We are social
Oh,
movement, yes.
awesome. And what do you guys do at the Congolese
In fact,
Solidarity
we are
Campaign?
here, we are training future leaders. We are
Hmm.
working actually to raise and break silence about atrocity which is are going on in Congo and unspoken genocide which started in 1996 up to now.
Oh, nice, nice. And you and I spoke for the first time. I think it was a couple of days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. I'm literally losing track of time. And it was my first
Come
time.
again?
I said the first time that you and I spoke was on the phone was a couple of days ago, and I'm losing track of time. And then you mentioned something interesting to me. You said that you've been working for Friends of the Congo or with Friends of the Congo for a long time. Can you talk really quick about the partnership or the type of work that you've been doing, or how you've been involved with working alongside Friends of the Congo? Your organization has been collaborating with Friends of the Congo.
Come again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you speak about the type of collaboration that your organization, the CSC, has been doing with Friends of the Congo, and how long that has been?
You mean the one which was protesting 2 days ago?
No, your organization. Your organization.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we started in 2005, South African social movement. From there, we were born. And it's just like we're trying to raise the voice of those who cannot speak for themselves because our background, most of our members are from South Kivu, others from North Kivu and entire Congo. So we came to South Africa and we find out that this is a country where it may be a role model because of how they fought apartheid. And then we
Hmm.
joined them to learn because we are here to learn and see how far we can go to just try to be to come to go and change the situation which is in DRC, our country. So we've been protesting, we've been breaking silence about genocide in Kivu, which Rwanda imposed to us as a puppet of France, America, and these colonial countries, because they just decide not to show up their faces, but they must use Rwanda and Uganda as their proxies to kill our people, which is unspoken story.
I think we lost Brother Raphael. Hopefully he can come back, and that's
so our
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Yes. So I think we are even friend. We reach out to friend of Congo since last year, and we are working in partnership. Meanwhile, they just make us to reach out from Fossil, which was protesting in this G20 meeting, which is in South Africa. And we were protesting on Total, which is under French in Africa, how they polluting and trying to destroy people's life because of imperialism benefit. Yeah, and it inspired us because when we were there, they asked us because of subject which we were putting on our banner and say.
It's my bad. I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Can you unmute yourself? Do you do that? Yeah, can you mute yourself? Can you? Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, so comrade, that is why we are actually, and we were protesting because French from north part of Kivu to eastern part where we are. If you look in Atlantic Ocean where we have border between Congo and Angola, there is exploitation of fuel there whereby France, they putting an empire there whereby they have their people who are trying to steal our petrol in side. They taking a lot of petrol. But what makes us cry is part of genocide because they trying to destroy community around there. They stealing a lot of petrol. I think about 22 million liters a single day in 24 hours. Meanwhile, there are people, there are community around there who don't have water, who don't have electricity, but they fly from France to Matadi, whereby they are in our south, and the issue of war between and Rwanda in Lake Kivu, where in Bukavu, Bukavu and Goma, between two provinces which were taken with M23. I think their collaboration with France is to steal is to steal gas, because Lake Kivu is very rich in gas. So they are there also, and this is one of the things which they were trying to lobby this imperialist country and colonizers through France. France is coming through under Belgium, under Rwanda, and they stealing gas there. And you know what is happening. Our people are dying even now on daily basis. They just sent me a video whereby the governor, I think the governor of Goma, who was behind a taxi driver and took him, and they're persecuting them because they don't want people in the area. They want Tutsi people to overtake their empire here. They want to establish it, so they don't need Congolese. They just need empty land so that they can do what they're doing. So this is what we just say, no, we cannot sit back and watch. We need to make sure we break silence, and then we speak about what is happening there. So that is the implication of Congolese Solidarity Campaign. And most of the time we're trying to say that we're building future leader, because we believe that what is imposed to us, one day it will get end, but it can't get end when we're folding our hands and sit back. We need to speak, we need to break silence, and if possible, we need to fight for our land. That's why we just say, let us mobilize and come as a people who can defend their country and their future. Yes.
So the same week that there is the COP30, and I think I confused both. There was also the G20 summit happening in South Africa, where you based. And if I hear you, can you hear me? I think we lost him. And I guess what I was trying to say is that if there was the G20 meeting summit, and the Congolese people, the CSC, the CSC movement, they decided to come together and essentially protest because of protest against Total Energy and other corporation, essentially for the complicity of what's going on. And there are a few videos that I was provided. I'm gonna share with you. Really good video of them essentially protesting. I think I already shared one. And like I was saying, that it's very interesting because people don't think about the pollution that happens when exploiting resources or extracting resources. Obviously, that's why some places in the U.S. they wouldn't even allow you to do fracking, right? When you have to dig to be able to extract oil, for example, because of the pollution that could happen, which could be devastating, and cutting trees, and they are essentially going against fossil fuel. I'm going to share something else. How do I download this? Let me see. Okay. I'm trying to share these.
We'll invite them to a meeting where we can then discuss the issues contained in this letter. And then once we've done that, then they'll come back and give you feedback.
How many days? How many days? 2 days.
It seems to be a coalition of multiple organizations. See if Fossil Bean, that is also there. See, I think there is another one, a longer one. Okay.
South Africa. Mac Walter Foundation is represented in all 4 provinces of South Africa. Malta Financial and Advisory Ethical Investment Advice Community. In Virosense, fossil-free lawyers, Mr. Ilatabo NPO, In Touch Development and Community Justice, Miratong Advice Center, fellow organization, Tosunga Baninga, Environmental Trades Association, Litakeng Organization, Oil Watch International, Oil Watch Africa, Health of Mother Earth Foundation, MS Environmental Project, the Crown Fixers Community, Innovative Tech, Good, the political party, the Kukune Combined Mining Affected Communities, Suja Initiative,
That's a lot of organizations.
Baraza Green, Tunaweza Change, Africa Youth for Social and Climate Justice, and Ituri from representing Greenpeace Africa. Setro Para, oh, this is in a language that I can't pronounce it from the comrades in Mozambique. There's also Justica and Michelle, University of KwaZulu-Natal Colonial.
Yes, she was actually naming oh, and okay, she was actually naming. Are you back, Harfair? Can you hear me?
I'm here, my man. I'm here. Sorry, man. The
Yes.
network
It
and
seems
data issue,
no,
but I'm
no,
here.
no worries. You do not need to apologize, my friend. You are all good. But from the video
Mhm.
you sent, there were many organizations, right? Like, how are you guys able to
Yes.
even coordinate? Like, can you speak to us about the logistic and the reason, well, not the reason, but like you guys coming together and being able to demonstrate to march?
Okay, maybe what I would love to say, you never saw many people there, according to me, because first of all, the organization which was marching is for Seal South Africa, and
Mm-hmm.
there's Friend of Congo which connect me to them. And then we're starting to organize logistic and contact, but finally we're supposed to attend there, just our movement. We're supposed to be about 45 people. But because of delay of logistic and so on, we couldn't attend all of us. We were about like I think 12 people only from Congolese Solidarity Campaign. So what I can say about this march, there were a lot of organization, but there were few people because we were about 500 to 600. Meanwhile, this march, it was expected to have more than 2,000 people. If you can
Mm-hmm.
see here the list of what they were trying to call all the organization, there were about 300 organization there. But people which you saw, it was like there were few because this is the third march they were marching to total. So it was like, according to me, they never reached the objective of what they were planning. I think because I never even speak to them after the match because I was traveling from Durban to Johannesburg. So it must be a problem of I think logistic, either like we say, and money,
Mm-hmm.
because most of organization which were attending were from just nearby provinces, like
Local, yeah.
yes, yeah, stuff like that. Yes.
That's really a good point that you're making, and let me then ask you in terms of logistic, because France of the Congo has been really trying to organize, and like you said, and that we connected you with the South African organization that was putting this together so that you can be part of that conversation, you can be part of the march. But you also mentioned the logistic support, and that's why as Friends of the Congo, we have been beyond the advocacy work that we're doing, beyond amplifying the voices of Congolese people like you or myself, um, or Congolese organizations that we really making clear about the work that we do and also the needs to support that work, because that work needs, obviously, like you mentioned, logistic. Yes, Fossil Free South Africa, that's the organization that we connected you with. And can you kind of like speak about, because I guess the audience needs to hear about the logistic challenge that you face, that organizations faces, that an organization can face when trying to put something like that? What are those logistic challenges, and how can people listening essentially be able to help?
No, thank you, my comrade. What I would love to say shortly is that Friend of Congo, I think they're doing beyond the budget. And people who are listening, we just 1 year and a half with Friend of Congo, but they've been extending their hand to us because this what we are implicating in is part of struggle. But our agenda, what we try to explain, Friend of Congo, is after meeting ANC, which is ANC, which is African National Congress, which is a part which is leading this country, and they ask us to organize. And then when you tell someone organize, but you never give him something to help to organize, he won't go that far. But we extend our hand to Friend of Congo, and they support us with $2,500, which can just, it will enable us to finish the year organizing 3 provinces, which is including Gauteng and Pretoria, KwaZulu Natal, and Eastern Cape. And we need to reach 9 provinces of South Africa. To those who are listeners of this platform, is that we just need them to extend the hand, because if they don't want to support Friend of Congo and Friend of Congo supporting Congolese Solidarity Campaign and those other progressive movements, I think we will feel like we are alone under the globe, because everyone doesn't want to support what is happening in Congo. And I think they must not put an organization like Friend of Congo to be victims, because you are carrying a big burden, but financially, really, things are not okay. That's why we just need a hand of support to organization like Friend of Congo, so that they can help us also to push our agenda on our struggle. I think this is what I would love to say, my leader.
Yeah, brother Rafael, thank you so much for joining us and kind of like share your experience and the work that you're doing, and also extending that call for, I would say, the action, right? I agree at the beginning, but it's very good to really like emphasize that the work that we do needs support, needs logistics, and Friends of the Congo has been doing the work they've been doing because of generals, donors, but how can we extend that uh, help? How can we extend or multiply what has been done? We are heading toward the end of the year fundraiser, and I think the goal is $100,000 that we aiming. We are 80,000, so we are still a month and few weeks away before the end of the year. So yes, all I can say, I can direct you, all of you watching this, to freecongo.org and see how you could take actions and donate. Brother Raphael, thank you so much for your time, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you, my brother. All the best, and we are together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Aluta
you.
continue.
Aluta continua, my friend. Yes. So that was Brother Raphael, and it's very, 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 very powerful, the work that they're doing against, those multinational corporations that do not care at all about neither the indigenous folks in Africa, in the Congo, or even the environment. And that's the reason why many folks like Raphael, his organizations, um, were able to put together this and demand the world leaders to, be more implicated. And that's also echo the march of what has been happening, what happened in Brazil during exactly the same period. Let me see if I can pull this. Okay. So this is my brother Samuel, and talking about like essentially organizing, marching, and that's in Brazil. And there are many things that have been happening in Brazil as well. I mentioned the cup the COP 30, and they also announced, and I'm reading directly from Akili Mali during the same week. Akili Mali, who is a Congolese journalist, he was based in Goma and was able to relocate to safety after Rwanda-backed militia took over the city. And he said Congo Basin Fund mobilizing resources for the benefit of countries. The Congo Basin Fund will be launched on Wednesday, 19th of November 2025. So that was a couple days ago in Belém, Brazil, where COP 30 is being held. Launched by environmental civil society organizations, this fund aims to support local communities in protecting the forest and marine ecosystem. We must do this because it is the right thing to do, because doing so means supporting the communities that people pay the highest price for deforestation and other consequences, says Mamondo Ote Lisenga, one of the indigenous women environmental activists from the DR Congo. These panels brings together leaders of local funds and key representatives working in the world's major forests, the Amazon, Congo, and Indonesia, to share concrete experiences of direct support for nature-based community-led solutions whose primary goal is to keep the forest standing. And I think it's very commending for first people to be organized into this coalition and trying to create uh, a Congo Basin Fund because it's really needed. And I was talking about earlier the logistic and just think about like in the midst of immigration, what it will take just to send a Congolese delegation to those events, to that conference, because that's where decisions are being made. That's where people choose the fate. That's where leaders choose what the fate of an entire nation will be based on on essentially politics, climate change, but really like politics, right? And why it's very important for indigenous to be present at those tables. But think about the cost of just sending a Congolese person to a conference in Brazil, to sending a delegation of people to be able to organize to march in South Africa for the G20 summit, right? Because we want them to be present, because we do understand and we do believe within Friends of the Congo that Congolese people have agency, that they have the solution to the issue. So all it needs to be provided with is the platform to articulate that. And when they are providing with the platform, not just being provided with the platform, but also being able to amplify that platform, right? And that's the work that we've been doing for 21 years since the creation of Friends of the Congo. But think about hotel tickets, the conference registrations, and room and boards for folks to be there, to be able to demonstrate, to be able to be sitting and discussing with leaders, and to be able to talk about the needs of the indigenous, the needs of the people, and how they think that the solution of the pollution is within Congolese folks, within the indigenous folks whom those forests and natural resources belong to. So very interesting, very powerful, and it's very important for us to continue to just raise awareness about what's going on when there is this type of like events, conferences, but also for you watching this, right? For you watching this and for you asking yourself, how can you tap in to be able to provide support, to be able to join a movement that is not only just supporting justice to end the war that has prolonged for 30 years now, almost 30 years, but also how can we keep a safe and unpolluted planet? How can we continue to breathe unpolluted air? How can we able to survive in the midst of having climate change and where it's becoming hot and hotter or cold and colder depending on where you are, with you know rains just flooding, right? insane rate, the things in rates that has never been seen before. So that's why our work and your work is very important into supporting that effort, right? Raising awareness and making sure that the right people, that the people who are going to be impacted the most, are at the table of decisions making, that they are able to discuss with elected officials, that are all able to discuss, talk, sit with world's leaders, and being able to tell them their vision of a world where pollution isn't an option, that a world where the work of children is not conditioned, like children should not, the place of a children should not be, you know at the mining sites, drillings or digging, extracting minerals. The world of the place of children should be in school, should be with the parents at home. So how to then get out, how to get the people of the Congo, the indigenous people, out of poverty, that they feel like they have no other options but dig, even if it means that they're going to have a whole, a soil collapsing on them. And that's what happened a couple weeks ago, where almost 70 people, Congolese people, miners died, right? Because they go with not the right equipment, and just the safety and the rights are just not respected, right? But they do that because they really don't have a choice. They'll accept to be paid less than $2 a day because they don't have a choice. But how can we make it a choice? How can we provide them with a better life so that children won't have to be able to go in and dig and die, where so that the parents won't have to risk their lives, or if they don't die, being buried under the ground, 10 feet under the ground, they don't later die of cancer, right? So it's very important for us to recognize the work that organizations are doing, whether they are indigenous or allies like Friends of the Congo, and being able to support that. But so that was this section about regarding COP 30, regarding the G20, and yeah, and then the second point was, and that was a huge blow on news. It was the Belgium justice who is investigating the Tshisekedi's family. Crazy. So let me start with Belgium, right? So they are investigating members. Belgium justice system, the Belgian government is investigating the members of President Tshisekedi's family for allegedly, and I need to use that word correctly, money laundering and corruption. And you might ask yourself, why is even a foreign government investigating the family of the president of the Congo? For the simple reason that these are Belgium citizens. Yes, Belgium citizens. And there was a complaint slash lawsuits, not sure what's the legal term for that, that was introduced to the Belgian judicial system to essentially say that, hey, there is this family in the Congo, they are Belgium, and this is what they've been doing with the Congolese money. This is illegal. You need to look at what they're doing. And look, I want to be really frank with you. Congolese people have been screaming for years, and I've been doing the exact same thing on this podcast, providing the platform to be able to talk about these for years, that the political elite, they live like they are in luxury Dubai, right? That with regular people essentially dying on the bombs, with regular people dying of hunger, regular people, the common people of the Congo, being victims of mass displacements. Over 6 million people displaced. And every time we talk, every time I talk, I'm sometimes met with the same quote, the same sentence, the same phrase. You have to respect the institution. He is the president of the Congo. You need to respect it. That if we want to change things, then we need to wait for the elections. That is complicated. That's usually what we met with. And other organizations, and I will challenge you, it's no disrespect. I'm not going to diss anyone here. I'm just stating the facts. Just how many organizations organizing today that you see on social media around the Congo are able to call out the Congolese government? Few of them actually are free to do that. Few of them are actually being able to stand up and say to the Congolese governments that there are the reasons why the Congolese people are suffering. Forget about Rwanda. Because if Rwanda as a foreign nation is invading the Congo, would justify you taking millions of dollars that was supposed to be invested into ending poverty? What explains that the millions of dollars put together in the funds to provide justice for the women that have been raped, for the children that lost their parents because of the war and the conflicts, if we just have to stick with what has been happening for the few years with Rwanda and Uganda, that you as the elite, you as a government official, you are going to siphon the money. So Belgium, the same country, and that's it's the irony, the same country that colonized the Congo, the same country that is the one that is opening investigations into the first family of the Congo. This is embarrassing. But it's also painful because that speaks of the legal system in the Congo, where the judicial system in the Congo is only for the powerful, it's only for the rich, it's only for a particular member of President Tshisekedi's political and biological family. And this shows that there is more accountability for Congolese leaders outside of the Congo than inside. And that is not normal. That is not okay. We should not normalize that. That it's not up to people outside to advocate and fight for the Congo. That why is it okay in the midst of the global solidarity that we have seen, because people see what's going on in the Congo and they offer the support, they offer the money, they offer the time, they offer the resources so that we can have a stronger movement for a free Congo. And that happens because people care. But it's not normal that those people who care are allies only, are foreigners only, while the people that sworn to protect the Congolese people, to respect the constitution of the Congo, then essentially do the same. It is not normal that in the midst of us trying to put together a international solidarity for the world to recognize what this young group of Congolese at the time in 2010, 2011, the Congolese Action Youth Platform, they came together and said, we want to challenge the definition of genocide. And for us is the genocide for economic gain. Fast forward, we see the Congolese governments that want to appropriate that term, want to use that term, not to provide or deliver justice, but to enrich itself. And we see that with the case surrounding the Tshisekedi's family. we've seen that how they are able to take something that in other places is an institution that is under the supervision of the United Nations, like a global fund for the survival of sexual violence under the supervision of the United Nations, under the supervision of an institution like the parliament, because that's what needs to be done if you have to follow the legal procedure for every country. But in the Congo, that institution is under the supervision of the wife of the president. Who controls her? For now, I haven't named them. I named them. Who controls them? Who controls the money that pours into that organization? Who controls the money that goes out? Who do the audit of this government or governmental institution? Who does that? And that's why, because of the investigation that was on the way, that they decided that they were going to like move away from that, and even including changing. And I'm going to try to change. I think this post is in French, but it was posted by Pan African News, and obviously they sent a call out to Friends of the Congo so we can help, so that we could help amplify that. Let me just see if I can put this. So hold on. Let me see. Okay. Share screen. So yeah, that's how so yes, that's Pan-African News, and please give them a follow. I know it's in French, but if you speak French, that's probably going to be good for you as well. Maybe to like practice your French, I guess. But this was a really big scandal. And it says, and I read, the Belgian federal prosecutor has opened an investigation into the bank accounts of the Tshisekedi family. The aim is to trace suspicious financial flows linked to embezzlement, ill-gotten gain, and the enrichment of those close to the Congolese president. Tshisekedi's brothers also under suspicion. Several brothers of Felix Tshisekedi, including Christian Tshisekedi, are suspected of large-scale embezzlement and illegal exploitation. That's what it says right there. So I think it will be interesting to see where this goes. And I keep saying, because the Congo has a weak currency. I think a dollar right now is probably what, 2,800. Don't even remember. 2,800 Congolese franc. You see, how much is a dollar in Congolese franc right now? Officially, it's 2,200. Okay. 2,200 Congolese franc. If you have a US dollar, that's 2,200 Congolese franc. So most people in the Congo use dollars. I think that's what is like you want to have a stable, more stable currency, and you want to use that. But what I have been saying to people, and that's also how the United States works, the Treasury works, it's their money, it's their currency. So they track every single dollar. And I bet you that they know exactly the money that somehow end up in offshore accounts of the presidents. As a matter of fact, there was a report that was published in 2020 about the elite capture of foreign aids evidence from offshore accounts. That was a 2020 report. And I think I've mentioned that before here. And you can go ahead and read this. That's from the World Bank, by the way. And the funny thing about this news is that when that report was about to come out, it was blocked. The leadership or the leaders at the World Bank, and by the way, the people, so the institution of Bretton Woods are really interesting. So there are two. In the aftermath of World War II, two main institutions were created to make sure that the world's economy will be stable. The first one was this, the World Bank, and the second one was the IMF, International Monetary Fund. And interestingly, the IMF, the International Monetary Funds, which essentially gives loans to countries, and the World Bank essentially give grants. Not sure if they give loans too, but they mostly loan for grants, right? And the IMF, when they give loans, obviously you have to pay back those loans. And sometimes, depending on the countries that is borrowing, you're gonna have high interest, just like it works when you're trying to borrow money to buy a car, a house, or anything, right? Interest rate is a really good big thing. But the IMF has, the entire time the IMF has been created, has been only run by European. Only. On the other hand, you have the World Bank, which is also a Bretton Woods institution from the United Nations. But the Bretton Woods has only been led, as far as I know, by Americans, by US citizens. You're an American, you get to lead the World Bank. You are European, you get to lead the IMF. Who cares about Africans, right? Who cares about Middle Eastern? Let's just have the West control these. So when the World Bank experts, and these are people like you and I that work in there, that were hired to provide reports and trying to see how effective those loans and how effective those foreign aids are to countries, right? Because, I mean, if you're in the US, you're watching me from the US, you know what Donald Trump's position. They even caught, foreign aids, US aid. They trying to cut it. They're trying to like just control what country gets aid and on what basis. And they were essentially trying to do the same thing. But what they ended up finding out is that those aid disbursement was coinciding with the sharp increase in bank deposit in offshore accounts. So they can send millions of dollars to a country, and the Congo is on that list. Let me see. And that's from 1993 to 2010, I believe. I read this from a long time ago. But let me just show you guys. what they say about the Congo. Let me see. Congo. I found it. Okay. Not sure if you can hear. And again, keep in mind, it's from the early 90s all the way to 2010. And that's, they use statistics. They're trying to collect data and trying to essentially follow the money. And they found out that the annual or the average annual, the annual World Bank aids, as per the country's GDP, was about 1%. So 1% of the Congo's GDP is essentially foreign aid, right? And in terms of millions of dollars during that period, $910 million ended up in, let me zoom in, y'all need to see this. $910 million ended up in offshore accounts. $910 million, almost $1 billion in aid, ended up in the pocket of someone else. And none haven't deposited. So in a lot of other accounts, bank accounts, but in other places, $93 million. I'm pretty sure that if they do that today, they will find something even worse than that. And when they published this report, when they wanted to publish this report, people higher up, and I'm not going to be able to tell you who, because I don't know, right? I don't know who, but somebody at the top blocked it. Somebody at the top did not want, what is happening here? Somebody at the top did not want this report to be published. Why? Why y'all think that they did not want this report to be out? Because they did not want people to question how effective foreign aids are for African countries. But I'm also going to dive into this. Not just question how effective these aids are, but also how these aids are essentially used as a tool to control countries or leaders, right? That's very important for people to understand that. Because as a nation, you give money to Congo knowing that the leader of that country will take millions of that, will take essentially that part of that money and put that in his own personal accounts. But you still send the money to that country, to that leader, because you want to use that as a leverage. You want to be able to manipulate the country, to manipulate the leader and say, hey, if you do this, we will send you foreign aid. But they know that when they are saying that, is a way to say that, hey, we're going to put money in your pockets, because there is no accountability. I don't know a single Congo's leader from 1993 to 2010, and that leader is known. That leader is alive. His father was assassinated. The another one was dead. Mobutu, 32 years imposed by the West. Overthrew by Laurent Désiré Kabila, who was assassinated a couple years later in 2001. But his son that led the country for 18 years, from 2001 to 2010, when this report, the period, that they actually drafted this report, he's still alive. Not only did he cling to power for 18 years, and now he's trying to come back. And nothing had ever happened to him on a legal perspective, right? the minister of finance of the Congo during that period, who was also prime minister of the president, who actually joined him in a coalition called Save the Congo, ironically. Save the Congo from what? Or from who? You participated in the plundering of the Congo as well. And I'm sorry if I'm being really, I don't know, blunt with, because this is the reality. The president, Joseph Kabila, he led the country for 18 years. When there is a World Bank report that shows that there is evidence from offshore bank accounts of foreign aid that poured into one of the poorest country in the world, and world leaders knew about that. The U.S. knew about that. France knew about that. But they still allowed that money to be poured in the Congo. Kabila is still there. His prime minister is still there, still alive, and he was one of the longest prime ministers that the country has had. Matata Ponyo. The governor of Katanga at that time during that period, who is one of the leading figure in the opposition, Moise Katumbi, he's still alive. But you cannot talk about money pouring in and not identify and not hold one single person accountable. And this is why the case of Belgium is very important and shameful as well, right? Because the justice that we see, the accountability that we see comes from outside. But unfortunately, that accountability will only be depending on we only be dependent on whether or not President Tshisekedi, because that's who I'm talking about today, is going to be relevant or useful for them. As long as he is useful to those who allow him to be in power, believe me, these investigations will be paused. Nothing will move forward because he's still a pawn to be used on a 4D chess game. But just like his predecessor, when he started doing partnership with China and not listening, that's when you saw all these reports about Congo holdup. Look it up. The Congo holdup investigation. That essentially shows how President Kabila plundered the Congo. And the Century published that. And it's available. Y'all can check it out. Africa biggest ever data leak. Who leaked it? Congo Hold Up is a series of investigative report by international consortium of nonprofit organizations and media outlets. Millions of leaked bank records obtained by the platform to protect whistleblower in Africa and the French news group Mediapart and shared with the Century and other consortium platform by PLAF and European Investigating Collaboration EIC represent the largest confidential data leak in African history. Visit CongoAllUp.com. Let's visit CongoAllUp.com. Shoot. And that came, and to me, the key word here is leaked. Who is leaking it? And they leaked it because I'm gonna say they, because I don't know who is it. I don't know who was pulling the strings, but I'm saying that they considered that Joseph Kabila at that time was no longer useful. So they had to unplug him. How can you unplug him? You essentially bring to life all those records, all those documents, all those cases, all those files that I had against him. Right? And it's right there. CongoHoldUp.com. You can go ahead and watch. Read it. So it's very important for us to understand that as we are diving and talking about the Tshisekedi's family, because I'm telling you that they are going to be next. And something that I found recently, maybe a few years ago, that the United States government, it was maybe decades ago, they were feeding information to the news. I forgot the term or the name of it, but there was a directive from the president at the time. I forgot who president that was. Let me just Google it. Like I don't want to be speaking. I want to be able to tell the fact that it is known that sometimes those things, when you hear about, oh, leaked, this information was leaked to the press, sometimes it's just the government leaking that to the press because they want to be able to drown you. They want to be able to make sure that the opposition, that this country that are fighting against, that people know the truth about them. So they're going to feed that information to the New York Times. They're going to feed this information to the Washington Post. Let me see if I can find it. And that's important for us to understand, because we're talking about the US dollars. You cannot have a dollar in your bank account without the US government to know about it. That's just a fact. It's their money, right? That's their money. And when they really want to take down a government, for any government to even fall apart, first, there is this narrative that needs to be shaped. And I'm reading here from the internet. Historical example of US government leaking to the press, the Pentagon Papers of 1971. While this was not an official government leak, it sparked a culture of strategic leaking and counter leaking. So yes, the US government has a long history of selectively leaking confidential and classified information to the press, sometimes to shape public perception, other times to apply pressure, deflect criticism, or conduct information warfare. There is the Plame affair of 2003, senior Bush administration official. The identity of CIA operative Valerie Plame was leaked to the press, notably Robert Novak, after her husband, Joseph Wilson, criticized the administration justification for the Iraq war. Obama administration targeted leaks, drone strikes, and bin Laden raid. Strategic details were released to the New York Times, other outlets, likely by White House, to project strength and shape public opinion. So, yes, the government, that's what they do. So when you see Congo hold up, because it's money, right? It's US dollars, the money. So when you hear Congo hold up, and very soon you're gonna have something about Tshisekedi's, and you're gonna come back and say again, you're right. Because this is what would happen as soon as President Tshisekedi will be deemed as useless. Another big story this week was Arsenal ending visit Rwanda. That was huge. That was huge because Arsenal was in partnership with, and I believe it was the very first one, and I had the honor to meet with Gunner for Peace the organization that has been at the forefront of this. Let me pull them up there. And y'all can follow them on social media. But they have been at the forefront of this fight, right? Ghana for peace. Because ending the Visit Rwanda sponsorship in 2026, that's what Arsenal's board announced. It was not something that came out of the blue moon, right? It didn't happen out of nowhere. It was years and years of pressure, research, protest, and Congolese Voice is saying essentially that you cannot take money from dictators, from a regime that is known for occupying the Congo, for exploiting minerals illegally, and for fueling wars and killing people and raping women. You just cannot, in good conscience, do that. Arsenal is a great club. We have standards, which is what Visit Rwanda needs to end. This is the same regime that's funding a brutal militia with thousands of innocent victims. And we certainly don't want to wear it on our sleeves. We think anything, literally anything, will be better than Visit Rwanda. Even Tottenham, and that was, I'm an Arsenal fan, y'all. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, fell in love with Jerry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Robert Pires, Frederic Lundberg. So I don't like Tottenham. And if you're a Tottenham fan for watching this, I'm sorry, but I don't like Tottenham. I'm an Arsenal fan, die hard. But this marketing company, Visit Tottenham, was great because Tottenham also won the European Championship. And they'll say, we can visit Tottenham, but not visit Rwanda. And this group, Gunners for Peace, put together an insane campaign that lasted for years. Again, 2018, that's essentially when I think Rwanda was able to enter in partnership with Arsenal. One of the very first club to do that, to have a Visit Rwanda on the sleeve, right? On the sleeves. And they did that, but they were not the only one that did it. There were other countries that also, other clubs, that also benefiting on using this Visit Rwanda slogan to, like we said, like do cleans the image of Rwanda, essentially. There is Bayern Munich. There is PSG. There is Los Angeles Rams. There is the Los Angeles Clippers. There is Atletico Madrid. And of course, the NBA, right? And next week, hopefully, I'm going to bring some of them on here so they can speak in details about what has been happening, about the work that I've been doing. But I think that was really important for me to highlight for this time, that Arsenal decided they probably didn't recognize why. They didn't say explicitly, they didn't acknowledge the demand that Gunner for Peace and other fans were putting on the table, and why it was unethical for Arsenal to even have a partnership with Paul Kagame in the first place. So that's why for us it's very important to dissect the news that we got, the win, because this is a win, this is our win, and I'm getting a lot of insults on social media, on X, a lot of pro Kagame's accounts, my best friends, always insulting because they don't have arguments, always attacking, death threats, and you name them. It's crazy. But what we are going to talk about next time with perhaps James, Fabrice, and the folks working on this, the folks behind Gunner for Peace, maybe Mama Mimi, to help us dive deep into the action that took place for all these years. Because this deal ending, and I believe in that it's not a small thing. It's just the beginning of a sports awakening, because sport or fans are literally waking up, and even journalists and media were able to take over the news and being able to continue to highlight the work that ordinary citizens, whether they are Congolese or British, passionate of human rights, that they were able to highlight this so that the pressure could continue to be applied on those clubs. And that's what we need to take this conversation or the action to the next level. So what is the next? What is the next step? Now that we saw that, like Fabrice was saying, the head of the snake was taken, was cut. But there are multiple pieces that we also need to tackle. A lot of clubs, and I named them already: PSG, Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid. Talk about the NBA, Formula One. Talk about the cyclist world's cyclist championship, something like that. The Clippers, Rams, because the next step should be that every single of them, or every club, all these institutions that are somehow taking Visit Rwanda money, stop. Also being able to shine the light on the fact that the Rwanda Development Board that is in charge of, this campaign, this Visit Rwanda campaign, is chaired by an Israeli, Itzhak Fisher, who used to be the treasurer of the Likud party, who used to campaign for Benjamin Netanyahu, the current prime minister of Israel. The people need to be able to connect the dots and do the research. It's not a coincidence that this man is going to chair the Rwandan Development Board. Because you need to be able to manufacture consent, or you need to be able to shape a narrative that is not even close to the reality. That you need to present yourself as an innovator. That you need to present yourself as a country that is working, hoping that people will not see how Congolese people are being slaughtered under your order, under the bullets of your military personnel. That the people are living under occupation of a foreign country, under the occupation of Rwanda, because Rwanda is an occupier. So the good thing with soccer, with football, is that it's very powerful, right? Like in the way that fans can watch soccer, they can watch football, they can have fun, but they can also at the same time refuse to be used for propaganda. They will refuse to close their eyes when they see atrocities. So that's why at the beginning I was talking about the Israel visits to the Congo and how that is what I call an end of year branding and diplomatic campaign, because you're going to have new countries entering in the UN Security Council, the Congo one of them. So you need to shape narratives. You need to have a strong PR system in place so that what people are saying about you, what people are saying about Israel, what people are saying about Rwanda, that they see that in a different perspective that is perhaps truncated, that is perhaps false. And you need to craft that messaging and use on the emotional side of it. How can you make sure that people can side with President Kagame, allegedly accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide? You want to remind people that he stopped the Tutsis genocide. And they call it Tutsis because they wanted to erase other tribes, ethnicity that were killed during that genocide. They want to erase the fact that he's one of the people that fueled it. That he himself committed genocide, allegedly, against Hutu in the Congo. That's what Doctor Without Borders say in the report, the hunting of Hutus deep in Congolese forest, deep in South Central Africa. The hunting of Hutu. Look it up. That's what the United Nations mapping report says. If these allegations are brought in front of a competent court, President Kagame of Rwanda, President Museveni, could be found guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Look it up, 2010, United Nations mapping report. So I'm bringing all this up because we need to be able to connect the dots, bridge that gap. What you see on the news regarding other countries, the oppression of other nations and the Congo. You see presidents, the president of Israel going to Zambia. Why in Zambia? And you see the son of Donald Trump going to Zambia. Why in Zambia? At the same time, we're talking about the Lobito corridor. Billions of dollars invested. You're going to extract minerals from Zambia, extract minerals from the Congo, most of them from the Congo, and create a pathway all the way to Lobito and Angola so they can be shipped in the United States. So why I bring this up? Because Congo, Rwanda, Israel, Zambia, and all these countries, Angola, South Africa, talked about G20. And essentially the protests that happened in Brazil where people were protesting as well. And all these are connected by something that we can no longer ignore, or perhaps something that we do not talk about enough. The global politics of who gets to be seen as a victim and who gets to be treated as disposable. So in the Congo, we do bury people quietly. And every time that I was talking about burying, I really cannot stop, I cannot remove the image in my head of this child And that was in January of this year, while Rwandan-backed militia was capturing Goma. And Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctor Without Borders were burying 3,000 corpses. And there is this picture of this child standing on top of a graveyard, watching as somebody else, and I'm going to assume that that was somebody that he perhaps knew. I'm not sure if I can find this photo. And he's standing on top of it, of a graveyard, topless. Because he can see how weak, he can see how the world has failed his people. He can see that the world has forsaken him. I found it. Let me see if I can pull it. Very striking photo. Shot by someone from a journalist from the New York Times. Let me see. Okay. This image right there. This is what I'm talking about. This image, I will never be able to erase that from my memory. Unless I'm dead. And think the smell. He's covering his nose because of the smell of death. That's a child that's supposed to be in school. That is a child that is supposed to be in school, not watching his people being buried in mass graves because at least 3,000 of them were killed. Because the global politics gets to choose that Palestinians are not victims. The Congolese people are not victims. The Asian people are not victims. And when you hear the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Rwanda, the Rwanda Minister of Foreign Affairs, when you hear Rwanda's narrative about the war in the Congo, and they all want to brand everybody as FDLR, would you call this kid FDLR? But this kid would grow up traumatized because somebody that he knew, a family member, a friend, family friend, his parents' friend, a neighbor, a cousin, an uncle, whoever he loves, that he thought that I need to stand up on top of this graveyard to see how they're burying my people. That kid will grow up traumatized. And then we're going to be surprised if he ends up hating those who gave the order to invade the Congo. And we will speak about the hate, but not so much about the cause of it. We'll be worried to tackle the hate, but not the injustice that made that he will never get justice. The millions of Congolese people, 5.4 million Congolese people killed as per the International Rescue Committee, 2007 reports because they want to stop counting Congolese death. We don't count anymore how many women are being raped. 40 women raped an hour. That's a study from 2011. And I can tell you that these are not outdated. These are probably underestimated as of right now. But why did they stop counting? Why would the corrupt Congolese government won't even do the counting? Why would those organizations, international organizations, not even do the counting? Because when you start counting, when you keep counting, then you question yourself about the effectiveness of the policy that created your organization in the first place. If there are 5.4 million people killed, how do you explain the United Nations still exists in the Congo? What were you doing? What have you been doing? So in the Congo, they bury people in silence. Because I like to say the Congolese people, most of them living in those places in the villages, they do not have iPhones. They don't even have a stable internet. They live with less than $2 a day. How they can afford to have an iPhone, a Samsung? So they're being buried quietly. If there wasn't that journalist from the New York Times capturing these moments, we will never know that there were 3,000 people being buried. We will never know that. That there will be this kid standing on top of a graveyard and watching his kind being buried. Because somebody else captured that. In Congo, we buried our dead quietly. In Gaza, they bury people under cameras. And in both cases, the world seems not to care. And that's why the conversation that I had with, and that's the next point, with an incredible group of young folks, Todo Chido, I hope I'm actually saying that right. The Todo Chido podcast, and which I just found out it means everything is cool, everything is awesome, everything is fine. And I was, Friends of the Congo was invited, and we essentially talk about the Congo. I love to talk about the Congo, about the work that Friends of the Congo is doing. Let me see if I can just go to the website and not the website, but the Instagram account. And it was really great. I actually didn't think that the conversation was going to take that route. I mean, I'm always trying to connect the dots and the struggles and show people that what's going on is not isolated. That's Todo Chido podcast. Go ahead and listen to them. So we did. So first of all, shout out to them for what they have been doing. Amazing work, just trying to educate La Raza, educate people, the followers, talk about everything, and bring people in their spaces and trying to trying to amplify and show to people issues that were not necessarily known. So, as the name says it, Todo Chido, this is a really Hispanic American, and I will even say immigrant-centered platform. And during this podcast that will be live on Thursday, I was told. So y'all be connected, be plugged in. about the conversation that we had, amazing conversation, and that allowed us, Friends of the Congo, to show or to talk about the Congo from a different angle and a different perspective. Because I say it that I was born Congolese before I was born Black, and I know that might sounds a little bit weird. Because when I was born, when I was living in the Congo, my Blackness did not matter. My immigration status did not matter. It mattered when I came in the US in 2013. It's in the US that my Blackness became a reality. It's in the US that I realized that my immigration status is as important as my person, as myself as a human being. That my immigration status determined the education that I'm gonna take or have in this country. My immigration status allowed me to obtain or earn a bachelor degree in civil engineering. Without it, I wouldn't be able to go to school. So I try to connect the issue of the Congo from that perspective, from the perspective of immigration and how people people fleeing the violence in the Congo, people fleeing the violence in the Congo in North Kivu are the same people that somehow end up in ICE detentions, and we talked about that. That people fleeing the violence in the Congo don't care about being undocumented in the US. Because you would choose 10 times the life in the US and life under the oppression in the Congo. You would 10 times choose to be poor in the US and poor in the Congo. And for someone who came with under a visa, I talked about how the crisis in the Congo also shaped the US immigration, because people don't really think about it. What do you think would happen when you allow a country to invade Congo? When you allow Rwanda to invade Congo and displace millions, and I said more than 7 million people displaced, you create perpetual asylees. You create perpetual refugees that can no longer live in the country. And we had Raphael talk about how the people of the Congo are being ethnic cleansed because those who profit from the war want those lands to be empty or want those lands to be repopulated by other people. He said it, I didn't say it. And that's the narrative that you hear from most Congolese people when you ask about them. You ask about why they being killed. The ADF that is killing people that we're trying to be, we're being told that the ADF are terrorists. But even terrorists have demands. What's the demand of ADF? Other than just terrorizing people and force people to flee. What's the demand of the M23 for them to be working in collaboration as per Human Rights Watch report to put Congolese people in buses and send them to Rwanda, where obviously Human Rights Watch are person non grata there. So they can't really investigate what happened to the Congolese citizens, not Rwandan citizen, but Congolese citizen that you stack into buses and you send to Rwanda. If you fight as M23s to end dictatorship, how do you allow that for the assault of Goma, 3,000 Congolese people had to be killed? All of this, why? And you hear the comments of the former electoral commission, the former head of the electoral commission of the Congo, Kone Nanga, who is right now, ironically, is leading the M23 or the political branch of the M23. Somebody who says openly that he proclaimed somebody that never won the election. In the same interview, he said that he has issue with Tshisekedi because Tshisekedi confiscated the mine that he earned for literally stealing the victory of the people, stealing the election by proclaiming somebody that was not even the rightful winner. And he said in the same interview, Tshisekedi never won the election. I proclaim him president regardless. I was provided mines as a reward. Tshisekedi took them from me. In the same fucking interview, he's saying that. And now he's leading the M23, and people applaud. And people say that, yes, this is the person that's going to liberate the Congo. And then because of all of that, he has been under US sanctions, can't really have a bank account under his name and use a dollar. That's what US sanction means, essentially. The US get to control who uses the dollar. And he asked for the president before he take weapons, he take arms to help him, just like the president of the Congo right now has been helping to ease sanction against Don Gertler, the same Israeli billionaire that is owning companies that are building settlements in the West Bank. It's all connected. The same Don Gertler businessman that has about 14 of his organizational entities under US sanctions because of the corruption that he is involved in. And just like President Tshisekedi helped him see his sanction eased, that Konenanga was also asking the exact same thing. But because he was not able to get all of that, because of all these actions that I just mentioned, he decided he was going to join the M23, and he announces that in Kenya. The same Kenya that somehow harbored or hosted the militia group in Sudan that is accused of committing genocide. The same Kenya. That's where Konenanga announced that he was doing a coalition with M23. It's all connected. So when that violence is being imposed on Congolese people and they have to flee, they have to leave the Congo, where do you think they're going to go? Where do you think they're going to go? They're going to come to what is being advertised for years as the lands for immigrants, land of the free, to the nation of immigrants. So many young Congolese come here on a valid F1 student visa. Others come on H1B work visa, or they obtain the H1B visa after they're done with their studies. And some, I need to be clear, that's just a reason because studying in the US is expensive. So some use that just as an excuse, a pretext to stay in the country longer. As they get their visa, whether it's tourist, whether it's being a student, whether it's being on a work visa. Maybe if you're on a work visa, you're good. But student visa, tourist visa, they get the visa, they're in the US, then they ask for asylum because life was made unlivable where they are from. Because they can no longer go back to the country to the same poverty, to the same violence, to the same death trap that they are being forced to live under. So because war made their home unlivable, they're in the US. They're in France, they're in Belgium. Belgium registered the highest number of refuge of asylee this year. Look it up. Belgium. And as supposedly we told that Congo had election in 2023, democratic elections. We talked about the elections in the Congo. I covered them. Akimali covered them. And in the US, because we're talking about the US, the numbers is even crazier. The Congo is the leading country in terms of asylee. The Congo, not Palestine, not Syria, not Iraq, not Somalia, the Congo. Look it up. That's why you heard during the first month or even the political campaign or the presidential campaign of President Trump, he talked a lot about the Congo because most refugees here are Congolese. But why do we have a lot of refugees? You don't want to tackle the root cause of the problems. You just want to identify that that's an issue. You want to restrict people's visas because under Biden, the visa was 2 years as a tourist and as a student. They brought it back to 1 month. They want to crack down on people overstaying the visa, but they don't want to deliver justice to the Congolese people in terms of having the home safe. The justice of having an environment unpolluted, clean. So instability is tied to conflict, and conflicts cause mass migration. A conflict is also tied to the exploitation, and that exploitation is tied to the same Western and regional system that we expose when we talk about the Congo. So I discussed in length with them and we talked, and I really want you guys to sit down when that episode is out and trying to see the connection about ICE raids, about the Hispanics, immigrants, and the uncertainty of being deported tomorrow. People flee because they have no other option. People flee because something pushed them out. So when I talk about the Congo, when we talk about the Congo, we should keep in mind that people leave the country for a reason. If the Congo was stable, if the Congo was safe, if the Congo was peaceful, if the wealth of the Congo, $24 trillion of resources the Congo has, yet the population is poor. And if that resource, if that wealth was shared equally among the people, not just the top 1%, the Congolese elite, that not only plunder the resources of the Congo, but also siphon the foreign aids that was supposed to go to end poverty, to alleviate the lives of the people that are already suffering. So you see, guys, the immigration at this point is only a symptom of justice. And I have a comment to see. Nice. Let me just put this. The deliberate framing of extractive colonialism as somehow a moral failing of a land that literally powers the world is peak white supremacy, and it's not hidden no matter how much money is pumped into the lie. Amen. Amen. before adding $24 trillion. All of it should be the decision of the Congolese people before anyone else. This is a basic fact. Amen to this. Let me see if people even commenting on Instagram, and I apologize. Bhop BB says Sudan and Libya are also African countries where Africans are suffering and being persecuted. Absolutely. The Congo has a colonial history going back to King Leopold. It has always been exploited. Amen. Bhop BB _ BB. Mimi watching say heartbreaking. Let's forget General Cost. Yes, let's not forget about General Cost. Yeah. Yeah. And Mimi said organize, bring a group of people and organization together and share with the Free Congo Network. PGM for Liberation say we need action and policy change to move forward. Yes, we do. And that has been the work of Friends of the Congo, just trying to create that coalition, build that platform for people to come and rally beyond the Congolese cause. That's what Friends of the Congo even stand for. Yes, and thank you all for your comments, and I tried to read all of them or some of them. And that was B Hub joining from Winchester, UK. Yes, thank you so much. Yes. Congolese Action Youth Platform, salute to y'all. Say calling on every single person to advocate for Congo, and we say stop genocide. Amen. RA_CD, I'm Ethiopian Kenyan, and we care. Yes, amen. Thank you. Beyond the Struggle Studio said, I can't wait to work with Friends of the Congo on my project Voice of Hope, Faith, Arts, and Healing for Sudan and Congo. Yes, please bring it on. Bring it. Comrades, oh my God, can't pronounce that, but it's comrades something. Who away. While the world watches the bloodshed in Gaza as they shoot, the world has also turned a blind eye to the atrocities in Haiti, Sudan, Ethiopia, the DRC, and the majority of Black and African nations. Yes. Yeah. So these were the comments. And thank you all for being engaged, right? Sharing your thoughts. Because as I was saying, that the immigration, right, is only a symptom of injustice. You cannot tackle the issue of immigration in the US, in France, in Belgium, and hope to solve that issue of that influx of, oh my God, they are taking over the country. We have immigrants taking over the country. Because apparently we scared them. But you cannot fix, if you think that is an issue, the influx of immigrants, the influx of migrants in the United States. Forget about the fact that, some lands were taken away from other people, from Native American, from Mexico. Forget about that, right? But if you think that we are the issue and you want to solve this issue, you want to solve this immigration issue, you will never be able to bring a solution until you bring justice to those people who are fleeing. You don't want Syrian people to come? Don't bomb their countries. You don't want Libyan people to come? Don't bomb their countries. Don't manufacture regime change or trying to bring democracy in those countries and bombing them. Because the stories of these families, are essentially the same. Why would somebody fly to Brazil, take buses and other means of transportation and get to the southern border, walk to cross the border, to cross the desert, to arrive in the United States and risk to be killed, to be bitten by snakes, to be eaten by coyotes? And I'm only speaking because I'm assuming, to be robbed by people. Why would they risk all of that if for them that was not worth it? Why would they risk all of that if for them as parents they just want to be able to provide a good life for the kids? It's the same story. Mexican families, Guatemalan, Congolese, it's the same story. Different continents, but it's the same story. The same forces, the same global system that is pushing them out and treating them as disposable. It's the same government that refused to take responsibility. The same institution that is choosing violence and silence. And that's why it was very important for Friends of the Congo to be part of that conversation. And there's a question: how do people in DRC discuss about immigration and the aid scam? Are there any calls for Belgium or today's big tech colonizer to pay any reparations? It's not my opinion, but a documented fact that begs the African state are entitled to reparations and not the fake aid scam that are used to write off tax for the same perpetrators. God, I think we need to be really careful when we talk about reparations, because I think there are reparations 100% owed to African states, which is different than the reparations owed to Black American descendant of slaves. I think these are two separate issues or separate claims. But I do think that these both claims are valid, are legitimate. That descendant of slaves are owed reparations because of beyond the inhumane treatments that their ancestors, went through because they were slaves. There was also this idea of free labor. It was literally thousands of hours of labor never paid that needs to be compensated. I think that Black Americans are entitled to that 100%. But I also think that African people or African nations are also entitled to it. But unfortunately, with the example that I provided earlier about the World Bank report of 2020 that talks about the elites capturing the foreign aid, and they are capturing foreign aid. So calling for reparations when we know that those who lead the country will just siphon the money, I don't think it's responsible for us to do it. But there are definitely calls for justice from Congolese people, perhaps not in the Congo, because again, justice is dead in the Congo. Justice doesn't exist in the Congo, or justice only serves the powerful or those in power, the elite, the presidential family, biological or political. But those Congolese are organized outside the diaspora. They organize and they are able to crack down or essentially seek justice. That's definitely happening, and I mentioned that Congo hold up. There is PLF that was mentioned. That is essentially Congolese organization. Le Congo n'est pas à vendre. Congolese is not for sale. That's an organization in the Congo that has been organizing or calling for justice. And there are many Congolese in the Congo, but mainly a lot of them are in the Congo and not be heard. They'll not be heard. But also we have some that we find in the diaspora, and these are the people who speak the loudest because they are allowed to speak, really. And at the beginning of the war on Gaza, there was talks about what would happen to the refugees from Gaza, because obviously there was a war. You want them out. You want to ethnically cleanse them. You need to put them somewhere, right? You can't just kill them. Well, they've been doing that, but you won't be able to kill them all. So you need to find a place to send them. And there was talks of sending Palestinian refugees in the Congo. And people need to really do the research, because these things are not happening out of nowhere. And when there was talk about sending them to Congo, that sparked like an outrage, public outrage within the Congo civil society. Let me see if I can find that article from the time of Israel. And people were like, no, you cannot do that. You can't. Essentially said, that's the time of Israel. Israel in talks with Congo and other countries on Gaza voluntary migration plan. That was last year, January 3rd, 2024. And people were like, in civil society were like, no, you cannot do that because we have our own thing with Rwanda, who is an occupier, who is also doing exactly the same thing. And people spoke so loudly against it. They were against this idea that we were going to have immigrants from Gaza, not because they don't have, because we are xenophobic and we don't want to host them, but because the place of Palestinians are in Palestine. You cannot deprive them from their lands and send them in another country, let it be Congo, like you say here. I think Rwanda as well was later chosen. And the Congolese government ended up going, say that no, we're not going to do that. But guess who said yes? Who agreed to host them? Rwanda. Or Paul Kagame of Rwanda. So it's very important for people to know that everything is connected. Everything is connected. And our agreement with Rwanda, and I just realized something. I was talking to an Uber driver. He took me one time, and he was a Palestinian living in Lebanon. Obviously a refugee. And he was talking to me about his house in Lebanon that was just being bombed during the recent bombing campaign. But when I told him that I was from the Congo, and that's why I stopped talking about where I'm from when I'm in public transport, like places like Uber. The other conversation was good, and I told him I was from the Congo. He immediately said, "Oh, are you from the country that is next to Rwanda?" I was like, "Yes." And he said, "My cousin is in Rwanda." I was like, "Why?" "Oh, he got sent to Rwanda." I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "No way." But the Rwandan government officially has denied taking refugees or taking any refugees besides the refugees from um, the UK. So to me, it was really strange. And I don't know if his cousin was here. Honestly, I don't know. I really did not dive into the question. I don't know if his cousin was here and was deported to Rwanda, or he was in Gaza and got deported to Rwanda. But he said that his cousin is essentially over there trying to figure out. But Rwanda officially denies it. They say that they're not welcoming anyone. They're not doing anything. I mean, it's crazy. So a long conversation, probably the longest that I've had in a long time. But why was that important for me to go through those points, to talk about COP30, to talk about the G20 protests with Rafael that came, that Israel new PR as things seems to be shifting, talk about immigration. What does all of that, what do all of that have to do with each other? What's the connection? Israel has not left any part of the world. They should not be allowed to dictate anything. Mimi said refugees were sent from the UK. Okay, yes, that one for sure. Trafficking people around the world is also a big trick for colonizer profit. This is also how they create mess and violence. Absolutely. Indigenous, Black, and LGBT people in Brazil are under attack. Native Americans still be treated badly in the US and Canada. Some of the cobalt that are used for mobiles and computers have cobalt in them, as well as which come from the Congo. Yes, but as I was saying, it's all connected. And what is the connection, and what is the truth about this connection? Everything today, I'm gonna drink a little bit of water. Everything today is really part of the same global system of power. And a few weeks ago, when I went to Stanford, I was trying to explain the 4 dimensions that Friends of the Congo has been fighting against, or raising awareness when it comes to justice in the Congo. The 4 dimensions of the oppression of Congolese people: multinational companies, corporations, the 1% that do not care about the wage of folks here in the US. They want to maintain a minimum wage to $7.25 an hour. They do not want you to be organized in unions. They want the governments, the federal governments, to lift any sort of restrictions when it comes to extraction of minerals here, fracking, and you name them, that could pollute the environment. They want those to be lifted so they can continue to extract, exploit, become richer, when you, the people, can continue to be poor, live under unhealthy conditions, in an unhealthy environment. These are the same that owns company that exploiting minerals in the Congo. The same people, the same rich people, the same 1% that don't care that there is a child or children that had to dig for them to have the coltan that they need for cell phones. They are the same people that hire, whether it's militia groups, whether it is mercenaries, to protect them the same groups that pay the government to allow them to evict Congolese families so that they can exploit minerals without being bothered. That's the West. That's the multinationals and corporations, the top 1%. And then the second is neighborhood countries that are used as proxies to do things that the West does not want to do. Because you want a black man to be pulling the trigger so that the guilt can be removed from the West and they can say, it's not us, it's them. Look, it's a tribal conflict. That's how they are. They fight over resources as if the West never fought about resources. That's all they've been doing from the Berlin Conference, even before that. The whole European history is about wars against nations, England, France, and what were they fighting against or for? They were fighting for resources, they were fighting for lands. But somehow, when it comes to African, when it comes to Black, suddenly we are the savages. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to be fighting in Africa. They don't want to be doing the killing. So they allowed the puppet to do that. Because for the 3 decades of conflicts in the Congo, there is one thing that remained the same, is how systematically, continuously, the supply chain was feeding resources to the West so that the West could develop technologies, weapons, cell phones, cars, video games, televisions. So those neighborhood countries, Rwanda, one of America's strongest ally, and like it was said in the comments, the UK also and Canada also, because the UK signed partnership with them, so they can send their immigrants, their undocumented folks, to Rwanda, a country where it's forbidden to even protest against the president. When was the last time that you heard there was a protest in Rwanda? We got to say free Rwanda as well. What I can remember was the protest that it was Congolese refugees protesting because they were not being treated good, and what happened to them. Look it up. I think it was about 40 of them killed, shot dead by the police, by the Rwandan police. You don't hear people protesting on media. They don't even dare to do it because Rwanda is a prison. If you know it because you've read reports of what the Rwandan president is doing to the Congolese people, you can only imagine what he can do to his own people. And the third dimension is the West that is shielding multinational companies because they represent Western interests anyways. Shielding neighborhood countries because they represent Western interests anyways. Let's not forget that Rwanda is literally a byproduct of the West as well. In terms of foreign aids pouring, if you think that foreign aid is pouring in the Congo, look it up. Look up how much of foreign aids makes up the Rwandan government budget today. So you have these countries that are being shielded by the West, by Anglo-Saxon, by Canada, by the UK, by America, by the United States, by France. And then the fourth one and last one is the Congolese elite. And I cannot emphasize that enough. The Congolese elite. Sony said Since Lumumba's death, Congolese lost their minds, never got recovered to take their future on their own hands. They tried. And they have history have shown that. And I'm actually going to disagree with you, sir. And every time they tried, they were killed. Freedom fighters exist. People are fighting. People are literally putting their heads out, protesting. The 150 civilians, unarmed, shot dead by a Republican guard trained by the IDF, the Congolese president's Republican guards trained by the IDF. That was October 30th, 2023. What were they protesting? What were they about to protest against? They were about to protest against the ineffectiveness of the UN and how the UN is for them complicit. How can you possibly explain to me and to anyone with the right mind that the most expensive United Nations mission in the world is in the Congo, yet Congo has lived 3 decades of war, that the largest UN mission forces, more than 15,000 troops, yet the Congo has lived 3 decades of war? How can you possibly explain that to anyone? And they were about to protest against the UN when they were shot dead. And it's on my, literally pinned on my ex profile. When people were organizing because they did not want Kabila, Joseph Kabila, to have a third term. People were killed. Priests were arrested. Catholic Church gassed. This is not recent. Do your research, sir. They do. They have, and they will continue to fight. But for that fight to be effective, it needs the global solidarity, because the oppression that it faces, the 4 dimensions that I mentioned, goes beyond Congo's borders. Who gives the weapons to M23? When the United Nations was documenting that the 120 millimeters mortar that are being found in Goma, in Congo, in the hand of the M23, Israeli made weapons. When you can document yourself and see that people selling weapons to Rwanda are NATO countries, Poland, Turkey, even China is selling weapons to Rwanda. When the world should be calling for an arm embargo against Rwanda, just like they're calling for arm embargo, and I see congressmen and women talking about Israel right now, arm embargo, not selling weapons to Israel. Countries should not be selling weapons to Rwanda as well, because we know where these weapons will end up. The same weapons will end up killing Congolese women, Congolese children. The oppression that the Congolese people are facing when they are fighting to keep their own lands because they are trying to be pushed away by a company. The same guy who owned those companies somehow also owns companies that are building settlements in the West Bank. It goes way beyond Congo. And when they're organized, they are jailed. When they're released, they organize again, they are jailed until they are killed. And that's why Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International have consistently written about the issue of the Congo, have consistently called out of this global silence about the supply chain and the responsibility of the world when it comes to justice in the Congo, when it comes to the war in the Congo, when it comes to the supply chain in the Congo, when it comes to the women being raped in the Congo, when it comes to forests being cut, trees being cut in the Congo, forests being destroyed. When it comes to those puppets being imposed to maintain the status quo. Because Congo can have as many leaders as they want. We can have as many wars as we want. That will never stop the amount of minerals that are pouring into Europe and America. Strangely. Read about the congressional report on critical minerals of 1986 or 1989, I believe, when there was sound of rebellion and conflicts because people were tired of the dictatorship of Mobutu, and then also how he was trying to nationalize some of the resources. So the West used Rwanda to overthrow him. Read what that congressional report says. That will not disrupt the supply of critical minerals, because they knew no matter who is playing, no matter whose sides win, that will not disrupt the minerals entering in the United States, the minerals entering in Europe. It could be Tshisekedi that wins the war today. It could be the M23 that wins the war today. It could be another coup, somebody that we don't even know takes over. That will not change, because it has been a consensus since the Berlin Conference that Congo is only good for its resources. The Congolese people are good because they are a tool to extract resources. The consensus is that Congo was designed to be plundered, and no matter who is in power, who that puppet is being placed, no matter the situation, that will remain unchanged. And there is a consensus about that. Take a look at how many people were at the Berlin Conference. And they were all okay that King Leopold II would facilitate Congo being the common market for them to come in and do trade, for them to come in and plunder the Congo. That was the common consensus. Because there was a common consensus to oppress the Congo, or the Congolese people, it must be a common consensus to save it. It must be a common force to liberate it. And that's what this episode was about. That reality of what it will take to liberate the Congo. They will take connecting the dots, learning, unlearning, organizing, mobilizing, being involved, reading, staying informed, and staying connected, because that's the only way that the fight for justice will go somewhere, to the liberation of Congolese people. So I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday, and I will catch you guys up next week. Peace out.